So to everyone who is new in this hall, I'm your host for the day, Manu, and welcome to the Battery Show India 2024 second edition, ladies and gentlemen, by Informa Markets. This session has been powered by CEEW, and the topic of discussion will be scaling battery energy storage systems for a clean and reliable grid. The session will discuss the role that BESS can play in ensuring a cost-effective, clean, and reliable electricity system in India, and how electricity markets and tenders involve to ensure optimal RE plus storage tariffs. We will further discuss views on cost competitiveness of BESS versus other storage technologies. And to take this session forward, I would like to call upon stage our esteemed moderator, Mr. Rudhi Pradhan, Program Lead, Council of Energy, Environment and Water. A huge round of applause for Mr. Rudhi Pradhan, ladies and gentlemen. Next, I would like to call upon stage our first panelist, Dr. Rashi Gupta, Director, Vision Mechatronics Private Limited. Dr. Rashi Gupta, ladies and gentlemen. You are wearing a beautiful sari, ma'am. I couldn't hold myself back. Next, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Umang Maheshwari, who's the Director for GEAPP India. A huge round of applause for Mr. Umang Maheshwari, ladies and gentlemen. The next panelist that I would like to call upon stage is Mr. Deb Malya Sen, who is the India Lead Energy World Economic Forum. Mr. Deb Malya Sen, ladies and gentlemen. Next, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Inder Bhamra, Chief Business Officer, India Region, Envision Energy. And last but not the least, our final panelist, Mr. Saurav Nandi, Chief Finance Manager, Gujarat Urja Vikas Nigam Private Limited. A huge round of applause for Mr. Saurav Nandi, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a very warm welcome to all of you here. Let's have a very insightful, informative discussion, and I'm so looking forward to it. Handing over the baton of discussion to our lovely moderator, Mr. Rudhi Pradhan. The stage is all yours, sir.
Hello. Thanks, Manu. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this show on scaling battery energy storage system for a clean and reliable grid. So, as you can see, we have a diverse set of panelists over here representing various verticals in this storage domain. We have from GUVNL, Mr. Saurabh Nandi is there. As we know very much that they have walked the talk in this storage domain. Kind of the tenders which they have come out in the recent months, it's mind-boggling, which has led to the price discovery also. We are not thinking of this much price we will be getting. We have Umang Maheshwari from GAP. It's a philanthropic organization. Umang has worked very closely with the BRPL project, the 20 megawatt one, and has gone through the entire journey of it. I think that's the first project which got a regulatory approval, Umang, if I am not wrong. To my right, Deb is here from World Economic Forum. He is a sector expert into it and very optimistic about the battery coming into our grid and supporting our grid services, and also looking after different markets worldwide as well. Next to it, Inder is there, Inder Bhamra from Envision. Obviously, it's our privilege to have some global perspective from Inder over here. He has done quite a lot of work in other areas like China, European market. So obviously, Inder, we will hear from you those global perspective. Last but not the least, Dr. Rashi Gupta, is very well known about Battery Wali of India. Means I think Dr. Rasi, you started the vision of this battery way beyond when we were still fixing the issues of the solar, right? The time means maybe a decade long back. So obviously we will hear the outlook from you as well. So just to set the context of the storage, if you see the entire Indian economy, we have seen that around 40 to 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from this storage, from the power sector, right? And one of the way of mitigating this emission is having renewable energy. But the problem with renewable energy is of intermittency, and there where the role of storage comes into place. Some facts about it: we require around 300 gigawatt of storage more additional by in the later half of this decade. And from CEA, we know that around 250 to 60 odd gigawatt hour of storage is also required for our managing our operations. So I think the next half of the decade would be really about kind of action on the ground. Now, the first half of the decade, it's all about deliberations. We have seen the tenders coming on. But the next half of the decade, we will see the actual deployment if we have to meet our target of NDC target and to be within the emissions. So with that, I'll start my discussion. Means I'm thinking we will touch on three aspects over here. One is on the policy aspect of it. What is India has done quite a lot in the storage ecosystem, but what else is required in the policy domain? We will discuss on the technology side. We have seen how the technology is shifting from lithium to sodium to vanadium. We are seeing, and the recent tenders of NTPC about vanadium redox flow oxide also. And obviously, none of the discussion is complete without finance. So we will discuss about the financing aspect of it, what are the challenges and some of the innovative models. And at the end of my session, Mr. Saurabh will give you a short, brief presentation around 5 minutes. He will let you know what Gujarat is doing, what is there in the offings next. We have seen what they have done, but what is there in the offings next. So yeah, that's all about, means it is the outline which I am thinking I'll structure for this. Let me start with the question first. I'll start with you, Mr. Saurabh, first. As I have said, you kind of the price which we have seen because of your tenders, and I think it's the fourth tender you have done. Another one is coming in this month, mid of this month only. So if you can say us about from a distribution perspective, right? What are the different value additions you are going to see from these storage assets? Kind of how it can help you in managing your systems, in your operations, in providing energy to the consumers, reliable, affordability. You can just throw some lights on how you are thinking about how the storage will provide benefit to you.
Sure. Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Rudy. First of all, I would like to state that India has taken a huge target of 500 gigawatt of adding renewable energy by 2030, and Gujarat is going to contribute almost 100 gigawatt from their behalf. So this kind of huge RE power when we are planning. So RE being an infirm power, there will be a huge requirement of storage to ensure that 24/7 reliable RE power. There is a huge requirement across to stabilize the grid also, because during the solar hours, if such kind of huge input of RE power comes, so we need regulations, we need to monitor those through the load dispatch center, that how it should be balanced properly. So answering your point, the first one will be the requirement of the load balancing in the grid. the grid frequency has to be maintained. Keeping in view such kind of informed power, we will be having 2030 onwards basically in the grid, and how we can actually get prepared to handle all those things. Energy arbitrage is the second part, that during the daytime the power is around 3 rupees per unit. Wherever during the night time, if you go, it will touch upon almost like the cap rates. So, to mitigate all those challenges and to ensure that we have a 24/7 reliable RE power to available to the consumer at on demand basis, it is very essential that we develop the systems of storage that will include both BESS and the long duration storage. So, over to you, Roti.
Yeah, thanks Saurabh highlighting the how storage can help your system. Means obviously it can provide you ancillary benefits, energy benefits, and also the network benefit as you have cited. I'll move to Umang next, who has very closely worked with the BRPL project one. So Umang, I would like to hear from you. Like you have gone through the implementation phase, right? So what are the challenges in the implementation of the storage project you have faced, and how difficult was it to get the regulatory approval? Because you are the first one who got the regulatory approval. I know that you started in 2018-19 odd and got the regulatory approval right now. So how difficult was it? And follow up, Umang, on that. Having said that, do you think there is a need of a framework which will justify all these benefits of the storage? From where I am coming, Umang, I'll say you, because now we have these resource adequacy guidelines. CA has come with these resource adequacy guidelines. And after that, you can see all the states are doing their resource adequacy plans. So these guidelines are notified by the CEA. So in the same line, do you think from any central ministries like CERC or CEA should provide entire framework of what are the value propositions which Saurabh mentioned should help the storage will help the grid? Over to you.
Right, thank you. So just quickly to introduce GAP. So we are a philanthropic organization and we invest in clean energy infrastructure. And we do this through two financial instruments. One is technical assistance grants that we give to DISCOMs in India and other markets. And second is low cost debt. So for the BRPL project, which is a utility in New Delhi, now Delhi has two peaks, right? It has a morning peak and it has an evening peak. Their peak load is growing much faster than their base load. Now Delhi is also getting 8,000 electric buses, right? And the charging time of that electric bus coincides with the Delhi peak. Now the EV tariff in Delhi is 4.5 rupees. The cost to DISCOM at that time is 8 to 10 rupees, right? They're buying from gas, they're buying from the power markets. Now DISCOMs are in deep trouble, right? We have a lot of empathy for DISCOMs, right? We are a DISCOM first initiative. We believe for energy transition, if one entity needs to be supported, it is the utility. It is the distribution utility. No one is focusing on the pressure of must-run status of RE is on DISCOMs. All the pressure of reaching RPO is on the DISCOMs. All the pressure of managing the variability of the load that is also increasing is on the DISCOMs. The cooling load, the EV load, the cooking load, right? We are seeing a lot of non-electricity infrastructure shifting to electricity, right? Transport, cooking, all these large loads. Now, when we started the Delhi project, the Tata Power project was rejected by the regulator. The Delhi BRPL project was rejected by the regulator. So the bottleneck we saw was the regulator itself, right? So we went to the regulator and tried to understand that what do they want, right? What are they looking for in a battery project? Now their point of view was like how it is for any network asset. They want to look at the cost that the battery is giving to the system and the benefits should be higher, right? Else the burden is on the end consumer. So we decided to work with the regulatory body to prove them that, how you cannot look at the tariff of a battery like you look at a tariff for a solar or a wind PPA, right? It is a very complicated network asset. As you said, firstly, it is bidirectional in nature. It can be generation and load. It can be a capacity asset. It can be an energy asset. It can be a resource adequacy asset. Now, what we showed to the regulator is a very detailed energy modeling on a 15-minute basis, looking at the Delhi substation that we selected, and showed them the value of value stacking, right? For example, arbitrage on top of it, tertiary ancillary services which are allowed, and capacity deferral. Now, these are the 3 value stacks that are, as per current regulations, allowed. Now, there are 3 more value stacks that future regulations will allow. Your secondary ancillary services, your resource adequacy, you will get some money for that as a DISCOM, and then carbon markets. So we went to the regulator multiple times and showed them that how over a period of 12 years, your RE charging cost will keep coming down, your arbitrage opportunity will keep increasing, your ancillary opportunity will keep increasing, and eventually on a levelized basis for a 12-year period, batteries will actually benefit the system. Now the challenge at that time was the SECI tariff was 1.3 crores per megawatt, right? Now, if we had done a regular tender for a 20 megawatt project, the tariff would have been a crore or something, right? Battery prices were still very high. So we, as a charity, decided to bring in very concessional capital. So we gave debt at 70%, 70% debt at 1% interest, right? Now, all the bidders, assumed that debt, brought their equity, and the final tariff that was discovered was 57 lakhs. This was in October, and of course, GUVNL broke all records after that without any concession. Now, why GUVNL broke, sir will speak about it, but the branding of GUVNL, the size, the kind of competitiveness they could get into the industry. So we tried to do very similar things with a smaller project. So to answer your question, I think the regulatory capacity building is the most important because utilities are regulated. One of the challenging things that the regulator wanted us to do is to do a tariff in energy terms and not in capacity terms. Now, their question was, what if the DISCOM does not use the capacity, right? You're saying that 85% utilization and all that, but that will increase the cost. So what we challenged the regulator was that, we will come every quarter and show you quarterly benefits, right? So that there is a provision for true up also, right? Right now, you're fixing 57 lakhs per megawatt, but actually the benefits can go up to 80, 90 lakhs. And at that point, either you pass on to the consumer or you improve the productivity of the IRR of the... Now, in terms of your second question, I think one of the most important thing is the capacity building of state regulators. There needs to be a very standard methodology of how you are valuing battery versus the benefits. So, a direction on how to calculate benefits for different value stacks, how to do the energy modeling at a 15-minute basis, how to compare the battery cost and as a capacity asset, to the marginal cost and not average power procurement cost. Right? Regulator just wants to look at average power procurement cost and cancel the order. So a lot of capacity building is needed. Secondly, I think safety and certifications are not taken very seriously right now. Our project was very strict on safety and certifications. Almost 20 certificates are needed before the battery is dispatched, from its destination. Unfortunately, which is China right now, how it's India one day. The second is on the time, right? We are only giving 9 months to install the batteries. Now, the Power Ministry guidelines said 18 months. I don't think that kind of time is needed anymore. The more that you wait, the more battery prices drop, the more DISCOMs will want to, push the battery projects forward. So timeline, safety certification, and the last thing is on the quality. While the reverse auction process is fantastic to bring down prices, I think there should be a technical criteria. System integrators and developers that have a very powerful EMS system, which is the brain of the battery, which can demonstrate that they can actually help the DISCOM schedule the battery and participate in different value stacking. I think that is very important. So having a technical criteria and a financial criteria for batteries, I feel, is very important because it has not become a commodity like solar and wind right now. We don't want situation where battery developers are bringing low quality battery into the country. The last thing we'll say is the substation readiness. The battery project in Delhi is right next to an hospital, right? GVNL, SECI projects are probably a little bit more, outside area, but now cities will see battery projects. The noise is becoming a big problem globally. Battery decibels are 100 and above. Fire protection because you're now in crowded urban areas. So I think the government and the ministry need to look at safety certification and O&M, post-commissioning support to discoms and developers. I think these are the few things that I'll like to highlight. Thank you.
Thanks, Umang. Thanks for your remarks on this. Key points which I take is that capacity building of the state regulator, which you mentioned. Obviously, I will come to the question around who are the other actors whose capacity building is also required. Now let me come to Deb, to you. Deb, I would like to understand from you about this, the tenders, because as we know, this means solar and wind are the one who generate electrons, right? But the storage is one who do not generate electrons; it only displays the electrons. And we have seen how the tenders have evolved from the plain vanilla to hybrid to RTC and FDRE. As you goes the market very closely, can you just highlight some means? Is it the latest innovations, or we are expecting some other tenders kind of may also come beyond FDRE? And also just give some thoughts on what are the merits and demerits of these FDRE tenders as well.
Thank you. So see, if you look into the tender landscape of India and the way storage integrated tenders have come out since the first one in 2018 in the competitive bidding space, you will see innovation has been something which has constantly been there, right? We started off with a two-part tariff to address peak power. That got amalgamated into a single tariff. We tested thermal plus RE plus storage, which failed. We went over to just addressing peak power. From there, we went on to RTC, right? Where we told about monthly and annual availabilities. To that, finally coming down to FDRE. Now, even under FDRE, if you see, there are two kinds of tenders. One which says that you give me whatever you want to give me throughout the day, but I need 4 hours of assured peak and 90% availability. The other one is load following, where they say that I will give you a load profile, you meet it. How much storage, how much renewables, you decide, but you need to meet this. Now, this all started when it came out at a 15-minute. So that means you had to meet this requirement every 15 minutes. Now, this was a huge ask. And that at 90%, even more difficult. Now, what was difficult here is finding such sites which will give you this complementary nature of wind and solar, not only in one season, but throughout the year. Along with that, storage comes in. So therefore, these kind of FDRE tenders, of course, saw a higher price than the peak power tenders. And the initial tender got scrapped. In fact, out of the 5 FDRE load following tenders, which SECI came out with, only one was successful. All the other flows has either been cancelled or being delayed now. Okay? So what SECI did was, after consultation, it relaxed the conditions. The 15-minute metric got relaxed to hourly profile. Now they said, okay, on hourly basis you give me. The 90% matching criteria was diluted to 75%. Now when you do this, obviously SECI's FDRE4 got a price of 4.98 from an initial discovery of 5.59. Now the question is this actually FDRE? Is this actually RTC? No, it's not, right? So but then we do understand that going to 100% RTC will obviously come with a price premium. So rather than doing it on day one, why not do it in a staged manner? In all of these, one gentleman who was silent for the longest amount of time came up very prominently: solar plus storage. The question came down, do we actually need round the clock power? Or can we do solar plus storage which captures the immediate requirement, that is addressing the peak? Now, solar plus storage was always there. And if you see globally, it is solar plus storage which is more successful as a model. But India, it all started with the short-term EPC contracts. Either Lakshadweep or Andaman Nicobar Islands or Leh Ladakh, they were coming up. SECI was the first one. With the help of World Bank, they came out with the EPC for Chhattisgarh, which had 120 megawatt hours, right? Now, that was hugely successful. That came out, SECI came out with the second one, which got a price discovery of 3.41, and all eyes opened up. Since then, till today, 4 other solar plus storage tenders have come to the market, right? Now, the question is this what will go on? Will it be standalone plus FDRE plus solar plus storage? Yes, we may see a slightly lower number of FDRE load following model, but peak will be there. But I'm sure a lot, and I cannot disclose, but a lot of innovation is going on. You will see this tendering space being innovated very, very frequently. So new models will keep coming in here.
Thanks for keeping our curiosity intact on the storage domain and the tender domain. Next, Rasi, I'll come to you. So, as I said, you started during the time and you have seen how the outlook has changed over the years, right? I'd like to specify, hear from you kind of the demand which you are getting from the C&I segment. And also, just if you can throw some light on which are the sectors from where the demand are coming, because C&I segment has this compulsion of these ESGs reducing their scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. Like if they have captive plant, then it would be their scope 1 emissions. So which of the sectors you are seeing are more interested for this, and what kind of solutioning difference is there for them, kind of for the C&I consumers?
Well, thank you, CEW, for inviting me here and the battery show as well. So when we talk of the C&I sector is a very price sensitive sector. In fact, I think it's more sensitive than the tendering sector. Once in a while a tender might get through, but the C&I sector's orders will not get through. So they're that sensitive when it comes to pricing. And what we've observed is they have already made substantial investments in their diesel generators or in their alternative modes of backups and whatever they need as in power solutions. So it's very difficult for them to transit to a new battery-based model. That is one aspect of the C&I sector. The second aspect of C&I sector that I've seen is the sizing of the systems, which is even today, after a decade, still the same. So somewhere we need to educate the C&I sector, and like Umang Maheshwari ji said, that it has to be not just a commercial thing. It has to be a techno-commercial thing, whether it is on the tendering or it is in the C&I or even it's at the smaller residential scale. Now, what is happening is we just realized that India has always been a storage country. I mean, many of you who might be knowing me beforehand I always say that we love to store everything, whether it is food, water, money, but it's now that we are understanding we need to store and harness electricity. But there are few challenges. What kind of electricity we need to store? Now comes the clean, the green, the polluted ones. But how efficiently can we store it, number one? And what is the value of this electricity that we are going to get? I am not here talking of energy. I'm just talking of electricity here, clearly, okay? So the C&I sector becomes very sensitive. And for that, what we did was, other than the first life batteries, okay, which are traditionally available with a BESS solution, whether it is a containerized or a non-containerized solution, we have launched a repurposed second life battery for the C&I sector specifically. Now that gives them the comfort and the financial benefits of what the traditional storage would be, yet the performance of the first life projects. So this is the innovation that we did, and this is a project that we have launched with MG Motors, Morris Garage, where Neha was there on the previous panel. And this will go live at Hall 1B94 today at 2 p.m. So you're all invited there, of course. But what we realized was, there is a gap with the CNI sector in terms of technology, in terms of assessment, and their financial gains. So Second Life definitely proves a very important game changer for the CNI sector, because they can afford it at a much easier price range than what is available in the First Life. Second, they are not scared that technology is changing every day, prices are steeply falling, which not just the discoms, but even private CNI sectors are really fearing of. What happens if after 3 months again there is a drop in the price? So here with the Second Life, they're already quite stable with the pricing. And they get this value for money which they're actually looking at. So when you come to target to CNI, we realized that it was very difficult to make them understand technologically, commercially, and with the timelines. So with these three aspects, we came up with a new product itself, which is called Relive, high voltage. And this is, by the way, the India's first high voltage repurposed battery that we have launched here at the battery show. And this is going to be installed in an industrial facility in Pune next week, which will showcase that actually it can deliver and make sense to people, and this would help not the CNI every segment, not just the large CNI, but even the small, young CNIs, smaller CNIs, and even the startups, because it is a matter of affordability to everyone. And this would also give grid a lot of stability. What is happening is, the concept of energy storage is by and large seeing the large sector. If you look at even the tenders, they're all centralized large storage tenders. But what we are missing here is that we need to have a decentralized storage with a centralized approach. When we do that, we will have these storages interconnected, making them very robust, making them controllable, and the discoms would have a lot of flexibility as to when they need to have their tariffs in place, when do they need the load in place, when do they need when do they need to dispatch firm power. Because today what we are grappling with is having a firm power everywhere, whether it is the rural areas, whether it is urban areas, and by and large these CNIs are not in the cities. They're outskirts of cities because land is cheap, electricity is cheap there, right? And all of them operate in the D-zone sectors. So making it reliable for them is the first most important thing to attract the investment in those sectors. So giving these perspectives to CNI, I think what is important to understand is that we need to have robust mechanisms first, robust systems. Second is safe systems. I mean, I'm really proud to say that in my career in the battery energy storage for the last 13 years, I've not had a warranty claim, I've not had a single fire. And we are the ones who bring active balancing to batteries here. And this has been a game changer, because what I see is we have got 30% more life. We have been able to get better depth of discharge and efficiencies of the batteries, because that is what is the game changer in terms of technology to harness the maximum juice out of your battery. Because it is an asset, right? So maximum utilization of the asset is very important for the CNI sector.
And Rasi, means all the technical and the operational parameters for the first life and the second life battery remains the same, like round trip efficiency.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
What happens is you have to size the system correctly. You have to design your system in such a fashion that the performance is not compromised at all. And this particular application is a UPS system application, which is very critical. UPS has a response time of less than 7 to 10 milliseconds, and your battery needs to deliver. And most of the CNI applications are UPS or backup applications, not the discom kind of applications where you need frequency response, or where you need a firm load dispatch thing, or you need a time of the day tariff kind of things. Very few CNI sectors would see these kind of applications. So it's important to understand what pain point of the CNI and how battery energy storage can actually make a significant difference to them. One more thing that I'd like to highlight here is not just for the CNI sector, but for the entire battery energy storage segment as such, is on the skill development. Because if we are not highlighting the skills correctly, we are not developing the right kind of human resource that we need, we will not be able to achieve our renewable energy targets that we have put of the 500 gigawatts.
I'll come back to this to you,
Yeah.
Rasi,
This
because
is
of
important.
indigenization point is there. So next, Inder, to you, I would like to shift a gear a bit to the global perspective. Inder, if you can share light on what are the different business models are there in the worldwide, for example, in European market or in other geographies, which we can learn and can adopt something.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. Envision as a company has set up a lot of storage projects in China to begin with. We have a 100 megawatt hour project in Singapore, which is set up at the Jurong Island, which is predominantly a chemical manufacturing zone. And that's more on an experimental basis where every possible use case of a storage is being explored, and it's been funded by the state. And then going forward, it's in UK and Europe that we've got multiple orders which are coming up. And the fourth region that we are getting into is the Africa region, where again the capacities are the tune of the smallest we're talking of is 3 gigawatt hour, to the biggest is 18 gigawatt hour kind of capacity or the BSS projects. So I think in each of these areas there is going to be multiple applications of the storage capacity. To begin with China, you know how it works there. It's like it's the state or it's the government which decides, and I think there are pros and cons of having a style of governing a country, or the way China does. And I think the good part is that at times, even if it comes at a zero revenue, the developers are expected to deploy the capacities, because there is an excellent planning at the central level, where the variation or vagaries due to these increased addition of wind and solar. I mean, by far they are the fastest in the world, and so the government is already anticipating the possible challenges that can bring into the grid. And so now the investors are sort of asked to invest into storage without really getting any revenue model. So pros and cons of that cannot be replicated anywhere else in the world. The European market is more structured, but I think the advantage that they have is that they have a very, very sophisticated grid, and they know that they have belief that as an investor you will have multiple avenues to earn revenue, which will pan out over the span of the storage project. But very clearly, in the basic investment case, they have a huge trading element, which they are sort of factoring in to make the investment case. But there are plenty of upsides which they're very sure of getting, and which includes all kind of frequency regulation, where they will get a premium paid by the utility. The utilities are not as cash starved or as financially poor as it's unfortunately in our country, where except for 2 discoms, most others are bleeding today. So I think that's how the application is panning out in Europe. In Africa, we've seen that there is so much of green hydrogen which is being planned, and this is being planned for application right from the immediate application, because there are a lot of steel plants coming up there, green steel plants are coming up, and there are a lot of Indian investors who are setting up those steel capacities. So that is where you virtually have an isolated grid. You have just a very lean connectivity to the grid to charge your initial capacities for wind and solar. So there again, this storage becomes very critical. In fact, even in a steel plant, if you see, you require for a furnace, the ramp up and ramp down kind of capacities. And today, the commercial value of chemical storage or battery storage is dropped so much that it's become cheaper than pumped hydro. And there, anyways, it's going to be a huge challenge to have pumped hydro in Africa. So, putting all of this together into the Indian perspective, I think there are quite a few low-hanging fruits. As my co-panelist said, it's the back of the meter where the focus should be. But I think let's take it as things come. Because as long as you can have a stable addition to new energy production, which is where FDREs and other elements are coming in. I think we should accept that gracefully. But I think another exciting part that I'm seeing is that we as a company, we are market leaders today globally in India in wind power technology, and we want to be the leading player in the BSS segment also in India. We are Envision headquartered out of Shanghai, but we have a large presence here. We've seen that while within the CNI space there is this captive element. When I say captive, it doesn't necessarily mean to be in the same company, but within the same group. You have steel production, you have cement production, and you have an energy company, and so they have very clear use cases. And what delights me the most is that even as of last December, we were nowhere in competition with pumped hydro, and suddenly things have changed, like literally overnight. The cost of battery has come down so much that these users have actually seen a huge upside, and they've just overnight cancelled their plans for pumped hydro. Not that they've cancelled, they've deferred, they've retained it, but they've said, okay, this is for long duration storage. But for up to 4 hours, a lot of battery is already becoming much more commercially viable and much faster to deploy. 6 months is what it takes for you to have the battery storage plant up and running. So I think, and again, another area that the utility has to look at it, whether it's the DISCOM or the Transco, is that while I don't believe the fact that, okay, it's commercially, it's financially poor DISCOM's health, which is not really encouraging them to invest, because they have a very clear mechanism of discovering an annual tariff basis the cost of the previous year, which is approved by the state regulator. This can very well be added to that, and you can get revenue out of it. So I think that is something which needs to be appreciated and needs to be, implemented. But I think another lower hanging fruit is that, the deferment of capacity augmentation. The DISCOM substations, the Transco substations, with the varying nature of wind and solar, despite all of them coming with, FDREs and, the captive storage element which is added to it, there would still be variation. And, that's a time when you'll need to have the capacity of the distribution. The whole grid has to be having a capacity of 3 times of where it is today, where it is predominantly solar and, thermal and hydro. So I think in that space, you can not avoid augmentation of the grid, but you can definitely defer it by adding some, quick storage capacity. So I think that is one of the lowest hanging fruits that India should look at.
You had asked me how the sector has evolved, right? Just on adding to what Inderji just said, a few years back, somebody had asked me, Madam, pumped hydro is so good. It has so many benefits. It's cheaper, blah. And, all the benefits were told to me. And that day I had said that, sir, there will be a time very shortly. And I think this is just 7 months back, and I said, no, sir, it will make sense to have battery energy storage systems. And GUVNL proved that it makes sense to have battery energy storage systems. And now again, there is this thing that I'm saying that again, second life will make a more bigger case than the first life here. But the stationary storage will be larger than the EV sector. So we guys need to step up our game and really understand that how things are changing so fast. There's such a big transformation in the energy landscape that India is going through today. And not just India, the entire world is going through today. And we need to understand that shift.
I'm cognizant of the time. I think this discussion can go up to the second half as well. I'll start the other way around this time, Inder. I'll start from you. You mentioned about the market also. This battery storage are taking the help of the market. I'll come back to you, Dev, about this. But Inder, I would like to hear from you about if you have a blueprint for of having a domestic manufacturing for this in storage system in India, what would it be? And also, do you think should India do a kind of component-wise comparative advantage, and should look that which of the components India have capable of? They should go for indigenization of those and should collaborate with other countries for other components. I'm saying this because I really hear this China plus one notion everywhere. I think we should rather say India plus many, looking into the ecosystem to develop everybody. Yeah, over to you, Inder.
Yeah, thanks. I think that is another very pertinent question. So, whether we like it or not, cell still forms a substantial portion of a stationary storage solution, BESS. I think if not more, at least 70% of the value is still the cell.
Inder, can you just be a bit louder? I think you have to
okay,
break
sorry.
the noise
So,
decibel of it.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm saying that cell forms the largest portion in terms of value of the best solution, and maybe 70% or more. And let's face it that we cannot overnight, build capacity to make cells. So even if you get your investment case through and you start constructing a premises, it'll take you 2 to 2.5 years to start producing cells. So I think until that period, and I'm sure everyone knows that whether through PLI or without, there are multiple large Indian conglomerates who have already started, getting into manufacturing or at least setting up the cell manufacturing plants in India. So I think until those 2.5 years, we will need to continue to import the cells. But we can certainly get into localizing the balance 25 or 30%. Now, we know that the DC element or the DC portion of BSS is now totally containerized, because that is where you see a lot of cost saving. It saves you at least 6 or 7% cost from what we as a company liked, which was kit based, because it had its own advantages. So that container now, we are at a very advanced stage ourselves to close a couple of deals. But if not from the second, at least the third order onwards, we will definitely localize the containers. And I think you don't need any further tariffs or restrictions or to encourage that, because by virtue of the fact that the customs duty is at 5% for cells and it is at 10, which effectively turns out to be 11 for the BSS, you already have that arbitrage or that advantage. So it's only that you need to then the next stage from a cell is a pack, and then it is a rack, and then it's a container, and within the container you have the fire management system and you have the liquid cooling system. So these are the elements which very clearly can be localized. There are competent players in the market. If there are players in the market who can make packs for an EV application, the stationary application is easier. So pack onwards we can certainly localize, and we will see that happening. Before even I have closed some of the deals, I have a lot of potential partners chasing us already to localize the container in India. So maybe not even the second or third order. If my first order is large enough, I can start localizing within the first order in India itself.
Great, thanks. Now I'll come to you, Rasi, again. You were speaking about these skills related, because we understand that once we have started doing this indigenization of this value chain, the skills are very important things. So what kind of challenges you are finding in the current workforce having skills, and how you are dealing with it?
Okay, so when I started, at that time, the sector was so nascent that nobody was talking about lithium. Okay, in 2015, when I started with Vision Mechatronics and, having lithium batteries in India, everybody said, you're going to lose your money, don't do it. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. It's my money. Whatever I want to do, I'll do with that. There's no investors. I'm bootstrapped and I'm happy about it. And I did it. Now, when I came to skills at that time, so it was so difficult to find somebody who understands battery. What people used to do is, just like how you short the positive and negative terminal of a lead acid and then there's a spark and they say, okay, this battery is fine. That is what exactly they used to do with lithium batteries. And they used to go bad. And then they used to say, "Arey, ye to chalta nahi hai." And I'm like, you're doing it wrong. So educating people right from that stage to bringing them here where you are having gigawatt scale tenders today is a long deal and it's a big deal. But we are still not there. What we now need to do is have a private-public partnership, industry, academia, and the policy partnership together. So we need government support. We need the academia to come and step up their game. We need the industry to actually do a hand-holding. Most of the industries shy away saying that, why should I teach? What is in for me? You're getting a talent pool which is missing. I mean, today, if you look at the young talent pool, they will go for the industry which is glamorized. We want influencers, right? How many of us do? Tick, tick, tick. You know what I'm talking about, right? The Insta and the YouTube shorts. And they're not on electricity. I mean, who will generate the electricity for you and me to have the YouTube shorts going on? We need skills and we need them now. We need the industry academia partnership to be really rock solid. To get these young talent attracted, because otherwise we will miss a full batch of people, full batch of young people, young workforce, which we need to make India the next superpower, which we need India to have 500 gigawatts of renewables in space. So we need to have courses which are more focused. So now what has happened is EV focused courses have come, but ESS focused courses have not come still. And focusing on that, understanding what high voltage systems are. Because all of these containerized and megawatt scale systems that you're talking of are nothing less than 800 to 1500 volts. Where do you have the skilled manpower in India to deal with that? I mean, in EV batteries, I'm digressing a bit, but when you talk to EV batteries, I have seen people just opening them in the all muddy space in an open area in the bus depot and discharging the batteries out there. It is so damn risky. So we need to educate the industry, we need to educate the academia and the government enforcement there that a skill is needed. So when we do this complete triangle there, we will have more skills. And today, ESS and energy storage that you look at, long duration, lithium has made its entry in the long duration with an 8 hours validity. It's affordable. It's cost effective at 8 hours, and it's a part of the long duration storage now. It's no more looked as a short or a medium duration thing. It is changing. The landscape is changing, so we need to focus on that.
Thanks, Rasi. Very quickly, Deb, to you. Inder mentioned in his remarks that the storage are utilizing the market also in the Western a bit. So do you think any kind of tender modification we can do so that this storage which is coming in India also can also utilize the market to have its benefit?
So, if you look into the tenders today, and specifically the RD plus storage or FDRE models, you will see that they are saying that beyond meeting the PPA requirements, you are eligible to use your batteries for any other purposes. That is there. But that, to me, is not the problem. That can be done. The bigger problem is, do we have that value stacking system which our batteries can do? And Umang showed that in one of the successes in that BRPL was that the value stacking was available there. The battery could do that, right? So I think that needs to happen. For the longest of time, ancillary market and battery participation in ancillary market has been going on. But then, are we seeing those results there? We haven't seen much. So I think that is where we need to do. Yes, batteries, till the time you only make batteries address only one use case, costs will be down, not because of the use case, but because of the global scenarios. But then we are not taking out the maximum that the battery can give us. And that is where value stacking becomes so important. And I strongly believe that at present, though the tenders say you can utilize it, but we need to actually capitalize on that.
I'll just add one point on the business model. I think I can at least predict 100% merchant BESS coming in the next 3 years. Gigawatt scale merchant BESS competing both with PSP, providing peak power to Rajasthan in winters and providing peak power to Odisha in summers, right? Because you at the transmission level. So I think merchant BESS models are going to be profitable in the next 2-3 years. If the war continues, gas prices keep increasing. And these merchant BESS providing capacity to FDRE tenders as well. So I think that is the big push that we need now. Moving towards merchant, bypassing the regulatory bottlenecks and giving DISCOMs, battery capacity when they need, not even putting a 730 cycle pressure on DISCOMs for a 12-month, even that is not fair. So I think that is one business model innovation that at least GAP is also trying to de-risk. And we see a lot of value in that.
I think, that should be the future.
Sorry if I may ask, I think value stacking is really what is critical. I think if you have just one use case for batteries, you are grossly underutilizing them. So I think we need to have at least 2, if not more. So I think that's the way forward, really.
I agree with all of this because this has not been done at all. So if your asset is underutilized, don't do, CNI or the DISCOMs, it's not attractive for them at all. And the DISCOMs are already bleeding really bad. So we need to focus on that as well.
Last, Mr. Saurabh, I would like to understand, we have this whole VGF, PLI, ESO in the storage ecosystem to support this to foster the deployment of the storage. But what else do you think is required in this policy domain so that other state also can come up in that aggressive manner how the Gujarat has come?
See, what I understand over here, that from the policy framework, there is ESO already which has been notified. So the ESO which is there, that will not only suffice the requirement. So we need to do more, because the targets, the way the RE is going to be harvested, basically the exponential growth of RE which is going to be the future, it needs to be harvested. So each of the state needs to take their own targets, that not only to meet the ESO requirement, but also how they can actually keep a balance between the BESS and the long duration storage. They need to work out. They have to work out with the CEA on the resource adequacy plan, and they need to pave the way that where we need to go by 2032, and what will be the next targets and how we need to achieve it. Again, the assets, what was mentioned earlier, it has to be efficiently utilized. We need to do the load balance, load analysis, load demand analysis on each of the substations, that where the requirement is actually. Again, coming to the state level, if we are having more and more BESS configured at the substation level, we are able to meet the demand, not only the demand, but also overcome the congestion, the grid congestions wherever required. The new DSM regulations are also being notified, so which is again a icing on the cake. Basically, you need to do something, otherwise you will be penalized from both the sides, underdraw also, overdraw also. So we need to have a proper roadmap how we actually address all these variabilities which are floating around, and we have a efficient utilization of these assets.
Great, thanks. Last, I will come from Umang too, and I will go down to Dr. Rasi. Two wish lists, Umang, which you think should happen in the storage ecosystem and which will help this ecosystem to grow. Obviously, I also think that like we have National Green Hydrogen Mission, we should have a National Storage Mission also, which will give we have target in CA reports, but not in that scale which the National Green Hydrogen Mission has taken place. So yeah, quick two remarks from you, your wish list to happen in the last part of the decade.
See, I will put my wish list from the government perspective. I think the system operator needs to come in the game, right? A system operator is a black hole. Information goes, never comes out. What kind of curtailment is happening? What kind of frequency deviation is happening? I think the system operator really needs to step up its game when it comes to storage, because I see storage as a transmission asset. The second is the coordination between the subnational and the national, right? I think we will see a flexibility deficit in 27-28. We will see a great interconnection problem, right? So my wish list is, if the coal belt of India, can also reach its NDC targets with Gujarat by 2030. The coal belt has served us for 70 years. They are the poorest. They have the most polluted air. They are, unfortunately, because of the DISCOMs and the state government politics, they're not able to develop their renewable energy potential. So I think as a national service, if the coal belt of India can also decarbonize alongside its western and southern counterparts, some incentive from the central and the state governments need to come there. So yeah, these are my wish list.
Saurav, your two wish list.
I would like more and more some hand-holding from the government, specifically the VGFs, which should come for the development of not only the long duration but also for BESS. Basically, if the conventional power and RE plus storage needs to match, the parity has to be there to be successful. So, from a cost effectiveness point of view, if government can handhold this kind of nascent developments, till we are able to achieve the competitive rates, so that will be a great idea.
Deb, over to you.
Two, I think one is the guidelines needs to be revised accordingly. We are in a sector which is changing every day. And if we rely on guidelines which were made 4 years back, we are not doing justice. Right? So I think guidelines needs to be revised regularly. And second, I think please stop this debate. Pumped hydro chahiye ki battery. Please. For once and all, we don't need it. Both are required. Both have completely different use cases. Go to China and you will see how battery plus pumped hydro plus renewable is performing and doing wonders. So please stop that debate. Thanks.
Inder.
Yeah, I think when it comes to storage, it's similar to grid. It's a classic chicken or egg story in India. It's such a sad state that today, and I say that often, there are at least 40 or 50 very well established IPPs in the country who have the vision, who have the capital, who have the desire to set up renewable power capacities in the country. What we are facing in wind is that it's sad that today when you go and apply for connectivity, can you imagine the year in which you're getting the connectivity allotted at CTU? It's 2031, 8 years hence. And there was such a great plan which was made hardly 2 years ago of 185 gigawatt of capacity addition in terms of grid for wind alone. And where did that go? Nowhere, because they felt that, okay, we cannot have an auction for transmission project unless we know that there is a generation plant coming there. Come on. I mean, if you don't have the grid, how will the generation come in? So I think grid and storage first is what the motto should be. Everything else will follow. That's most critical. And second, we need to have a three-legged plan. Sorry. So, one is behind the meter, one is at the distribution circle, and one is at the central transmission system. One needs to sit down and write a complete plan at the three levels. And I'm sure how the capital flows in and how the revenue model flows in will really follow very soon. So, trust the industry for that. Those are my 2 cents, please.
Last word, Rasi.
Last word, yeah. So I'll just add few points here. And I'll just make them in words and not sentences because again, she'll put a buzzer then. Number 1 is hybridization. You do not need to compete, you need to collaborate. You don't need hydrogen versus battery. You don't need pumped hydro versus battery. You don't need battery versus battery. You need all of them together. So hybridization and collaboration, no competition. Second, you need skills. Third, you need innovative financial models delivered on time with an effective policy, not taking 4 years, 5 years. I mean, India, we are lagging way, way behind. I mean, if I look at Dubai, they sign it right now. The deal is done. 8 gigawatts signed in India. We are still crimping and limping to reach 1 gigawatt, 3 gigawatts. Where are we? So we need to push, we need to step up our game, and we need to really, really be very agile and fast. And if we don't do that, please don't expect 500 gigawatts of renewable energies. Last but not the least, have a decentralized yet a centralized approach. When you do that, you have the entire ecosystem combined together, whether it is rural India, whether it's urban India. We need India to be the superpower, and these things have to be focused with the value and not just the L1 tenders, with the value that you're creating.
Great. Thanks everyone for your lovely final remarks. Means I would like to summarize it, but Mona is here. She will throw out me off the building. So I'll just take 2-3 more minutes because Mr. Saurabh is there. As I said in my initial remarks, that he will be giving some presentation. 3-4 minutes, Mona, and then we are done. You want to go? Okay, so Dr. Rasi is saying we can have a group picture and then we'll have the presentation. Yeah. Thanks. Fine. Oh, no. Great. Thanks for you, but we will have the presentation. We are having the group picture right now after this.
I would request everyone to please step forward so that the tables don't block the entire view of the lovely dresses that everyone's all decked up and everything. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, so I would request, since Dr. Rashi is getting late for her next appointment, so for that, I would request our moderator, Mr. Rudhi Pradhan, to please come forward and felicitate the lovely lady. आप center में आ जाइए, please, so that the photographs are more aesthetically better. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for being here with us. Sure.
Okay. Please. 2-3 minutes दे दे.
So I think we can continue with the presentation now.
Yeah,
Yes?
we'll have the presentation
And
for a
also,
couple of minutes.
Manu, not Mona, please.
Okay, sorry. Manu, sorry,
Thank
my
you
bad.
so much.
Yeah, thank you, Rudy. This is the presentation you have the GUVNL, basically what are the best practices we are doing and how we are actually innovating the whole tender process for the BESS for the benefit of the audience, basically. So, going forward. See, we have already planned our RE to on a additions, basically, and we are on the roadmap of 100 gigawatt addition by 2030. So out of that, almost 30 gigawatt we have already implemented. Some of the plant already we have added almost 13 gigawatt capacity charges we have tied up for 23-24. So this is how the target is being shown. We have actually for earlier years we were having a smaller volume of tie-ups, but in 23-24 we have actually worked out almost like 13 gigawatt of capacity. Moving forward, as per the resource adequacy requirement, we need almost 55 gigawatt hour of addition of storage. So this is not only meeting our ESO requirement. Our ESO requirement is 22 gigawatts hour of storage, but we actually plan to do this kind of additions. So huge opportunities for Gujarat to actually harvest the RE power, and we are working on that basically through different models, as it was already discussed, not only restricted to BESS but also on the long-term storage. Now coming to the BESS tender, how we actually improvise the whole tendering process and what were our learning in the first phase and how we actually mitigated those kind of risks. So in our first phase, there were a lot of bottlenecks which we faced basically. We actually tried both PSP, BESS, flywheel all together. So it was not a single technology. So we finally canceled this tender, and then after the stakeholders meeting, we have actually identified the pain areas, where they are actually, we can improvise and we can actually handhold the developers. So on a risk assessment part, we have found that the off-takers risk was one challenge, that who is going to take that. Technology risks, financing risks, land-related risks, connectivity risks, charging power, cost of compliances, delays, and regulatory. These were the main areas which we found actually after the stakeholders consultation. We try to mitigate all those them by resolving it with a simple vanilla solutions basically. Our tender document in nutshell, we only asked for 4 items basically. Choose your own ticket size. We have given the liberty to the developers that you can choose your own ticket size with the minimum requirement. 2.5% annual degradation were allowed. 95% availability needs to be met, and 85% round trip efficiency. So we have actually taken out all the other parameters which were actually stopping the developers from participating. This is how we have actually mitigated all the risks. Off-takers risks, we have given 100% assurance that GVNL will be giving. Even on the input power also, we are giving 100% assurance that GVNL will be providing the input power. Technology agnostic tenders are there. Developers can choose their own technology, the kind of battery they want. Funding requirement, GVNL's rating and track records. If the developers comes for a proposal of escrow account, that is also very well considered. Basically, land requirement, we are providing the lands in our JETCO substations, so there is no hindrance or the time delay for finding out the land and identifying connectivity at each substations we are actually providing. The bay needs to be created by the developer. Charging power, again, 100% given by the GVNL itself. We have a robust process of licensing with our Honorable Commission, so regulatory approvals are all timely received. Discovered bids, actually, if you see the levelized tariff of SECI bids, the first one was almost like 10.5 lakhs per megawatt per month, which we have actually received in our phase 2 tenders, like 4.5 lakhs per megawatt per month with a levelized tariff of 4.43. And phase 3 is still the L1 rates, basically, still discovered in India. It is 3.73 lakhs per megawatt per month with a levelized tariff of 3.63 per unit. So if we add this along with the solar power or wind power, it comes to almost comparable to the conventional energy charges. So this is what I was referring, that we need to get there so that we are more competitive and we are adding value to the overall. So future strategies, we have already tied up with the LDS Commission Council, basically, long duration energy storage. And we are planning for our 4th round of tenders, 400 by 800 along with the Greenshoe option. So it will be 800 by 1600 megawatt. Challenges, we are still facing a few things on the high fund cost, land connectivity, smooth execution and regulations. So we are working on that on a systematic manner to overcome all these bottlenecks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh, for this wonderful presentation. Over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I believe that we are definitely intellectually more enriched with this discussion as well as the presentation. Agar presentation miss ho jati, I am sure there was a lot of information that we had missed, so we would have missed. So I'm glad that we covered that. And also, I'm definitely feeling wiser and more educated on the topic of scaling battery energy storage systems for a clean and reliable grid. So now, at the end of this, since you've enriched us with so much knowledge, I would request our moderator, Mr. Rudhi Pradhan, to please felicitate the other panel members. We've already felicitated Dr. Rashi Gupta. And next, moving on to Mr. Umang Maheshwari. Sir, please come forward. A huge round of applause for the panelists, ladies and gentlemen. The next panelist that I would like to felicitate is Mr. Deb Malya Sen. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Inder Bhamra. And last, but definitely not the least, Mr. Saurav Nandi. And finally, our lovely moderator, Mr. Rudhi Pradhan, I would like to felicitate you personally, sir.